Houthi rebels are alleging that Israeli airstrikes on Yemen have killed 9 people early Thursday. Al Masirah Television, the main media outlet run by Houthis, is reporting that 7 were killed in an airstrike on the port of Salif and 2 were killed in IDF strike on the Ras Issa oil facility. The strikes also targeted 2 central power stations south and north of capital Sanaa. Listen in.
Today, the IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructures in Sanaa, which the Houthis have been using in ways that effectively contributed to their military actions. Israel will not hesitate to act in order to defend itself and its citizens from the Houthis' attacks.
According to a fresh Pentagon report that details actions accelerating key areas of conflict with the US, China is expanding its nuclear force, increasing its military pressure against Taiwan, and strengthening its ties with Russia. A senior American defense official said that the impact is a bit of a mixed bag because while there has been progress in some programs, China has slid back in others. Israel has killed more than 45,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 100,000 in the 438 days of Israel's war in Gaza. In the north, Israeli forces have again attacked barely functioning Kamal Adwan Hospital. The hospital director has said that dozens of people have been wounded in Israel's latest strikes. The ICU caught fire, forcing it to go out of service. At least 38 people have been killed and 203 wounded in the recent Israeli attacks across Gaza over the past 24 hours alone. Israel has once again blocked the UN from reaching northern Gaza as international organizations have been urging Israel to end its blockade and allow aid deliveries to the area. The United States, joined by Arab mediators, has sought to conclude an agreement between Israel and Hamas to halt the 14-month-old war in the Gaza Strip. As per local media reports, Gaza ceasefire mediators are urging Israel to agree to the release of high-profile Palestinian prisoners in the next agreement's next stages. Sources close to the talks in Cairo have said an agreement could be signed in the coming days on a ceasefire and the release of hostages held in Gaza in return for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has reiterated that Washington remains quote-unquote hopeful of securing a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas before handing out his duties as President-elect Donald Trump's administration comes in. Blinken spoke at the Council on Foreign Relations, where he spoke about the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, as well as the future of Syria and the US relationship with Iran. Listen in.
Now is the time, assuming we get the hostages back, to move this to another place where they're not left holding the bag in Gaza. Because if they do, if they wind up holding the bag, they'll be dealing with an insurgency for years. And that's not in their interest. So Gaza has to be translated into something different that ensures that Hamas is not in any way in charge, that Israel doesn't have to be, and that there's something coherent that follows that enables the governance, the security, the reconstruction of Gaza.
The United States has warned that Russia is close to accepting a nuclear-armed North Korea as Moscow and Pyongyang defend their growing cooperation. In September, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had backed North Korea's reliance on nuclear weapons as a foundation of self-defense. Russia views the notion of denuclearizing North Korea as a closed issue. Russia is using North Korean troops to battle Ukrainian forces holding an enclave in Russia's Kursk region. Now, this report comes only a couple of days after the first North Korean troop casualties were reported by the US and Ukraine in the war that the Russian war machinery has been carrying on. In a significant move towards improving ties, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng in Beijing. Zheng said China and India should gradually resume institutional dialogue as well as exchanges and cooperation in fields such as economy, trade and culture to bring bilateral relations back onto the track of stable development. Now, this marks the first special representative level talks between India and China since December 2019. Several children have died during a stampede at a holiday fun fair in southwestern Nigeria. The incident happened at the Islamic High School in Oyo State, near the economic hub of Lagos. Security forces at the scene arrested the event's organizers. Children injured at the venue were rushed to local hospitals. Meanwhile, local media have identified the event's organizers as the Women in Need of Guidance and Support Foundation, which held a similar event for children last year. Listen in to what they have to say.
There's no way anybody in his right mind will not organize an event of this nature without involving security apparatus. I mean, people are very sane and they are alive to what is happening around us. You can't cramp 10,000 people, children for that matter, in a place and expect them to behave normally. You will be a person to really think like that. So we are not exonerating anybody who is connected with this organization event. But government is awaiting report of the security agency.
At least 11 people have died after a fire engulfed the entrance of a cafe in the Vietnamese capital Hanoi on Wednesday. The blaze blocked the entrance to the cafe and emitted thick smoke into the three-story building where over a dozen people were inside. The fire was extinguished after an hour. 7 people were rescued and 11 bodies were later brought out on stretchers. Police said the victims died of smoke inhalation. Officials confirmed that a 51-year-old man has been arrested in connection to the blaze. The pilot and co-pilot died after a private plane crashed after landing at an airport on the outskirts of Buenos Aires. The aircraft had flown in from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. People inside a building struck by the plane were rescued by firefighters and were in a stable condition. Others in surrounding homes were also evacuated as crews worked to extinguish the fire. An investigation has been launched into the cause of the accident. A year into a plan to rescue Cuba's economy from a crisis gripping the island with inflation, dollarization, and a growing illegal currency market, the government has acknowledged that the expected results have not been achieved. The Cuban government is now promising to ease exchange rates based on supply and demand. Listen in to what the Cuban government had to say.
Tenemos la insatisfacción de que no se ha avanzado lo necesario, sobre todo en aquellas cuestiones que demanda nuestra población. Y ese nuevo régimen cambiario asume una mayor flexibilidad en el tipo de cambio al establecer que la tasa de cambio debe variar cuando se modifican las condiciones de oferta y demanda. Es un proceso complejo, pero va a ser un mecanismo flexible que se va a implementar, que evidentemente va a salir el banco con una tasa al día, va a hacer sus operaciones. Esto va a estimular que las personas se sientan atraídos y con más confianza a ir a vender sus divisas al sistema bancario.
The U.S. has reported its first severe human case of bird flu at Louisiana. The patient is in critical condition and has been hospitalized after suspected contact with an infected backyard flock. California, the most populous state in the US, has declared an emergency over the H5N1 virus as it spreads more widely in dairy herds. The virus has infected dozens of farm workers this year alone. A London judge has ruled that British police can seize nearly £2.7 million from Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate. The seizure is over unpaid taxes. The decision comes from Westminster Magistrates Court on Wednesday. Now, the Tates are accused of not paying tax on £21 million in revenue from online businesses. This revenue spans from 2014 to 2022. The funds in 7 accounts will now be forfeited. Judge Paul Goldspring stated that the Tates were required to declare and pay taxes in Britain and Romania. The brothers have been living in Romania since 2017. Not only this, they are also facing human trafficking charges in the country, which they deny. However, both the brothers have served prison time in Romania earlier as well.